Hey everybody, Alex from SCADA here. In this video, we're going to talk through Ignition's expression language and some ways we can take advantage of that across our project. So in Ignition, as we've discussed, we have all of our views in perspective or windows in vision. So let's just for a second, we'll open up our ad hoc trends screen here. So this gives us a way to use components to display data and information to our users and allow them to enter things into the system. Typically that would be mapped to things like tags. Here we have all of our simulated data from one of our device simulators as we use in the Ignition 103 videos. This is giving us data from our gateway from a simulated programmable logic controller, or PLC. So we can easily map to this. These are pulling across some of the values here from our compressor to display on the trend screen here. If we want to do operations on this data, and let's say relatively simple operations, we're not going to be running like for loops or while loops. Maybe we're using if statements or scaling values or things. We can use the expression language. So if we look in the docs and we look at the expression language and syntax document here, this explains the overall syntax of the document or of the expressions, how to use strings, Boolean values, how to use operators like nots, modulus, math operators, multiply, divide, add, subtract. If we want to do and or in if statements, check equality, greater than, less than, etc. We can also work with Ignition data sets, which are a data type that basically give us tabular data that we can use to display in tables or things. We can look at collections, so arrays that we can get into. And if you're familiar with programming at all, this should be relatively straightforward. We can also call functions. There's a bunch of predefined functions in the system. You can also look at Inductive University for some walkthroughs in a little bit more detail. And some examples down here at the bottom, like string concatenation. So if we want to add strings together, if we want to convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit or vice versa, if we want to do date formatting is a very common operation in an expression. If we want to do date arithmetic, like we want to add hours or minutes to a time, we go over that quite a bit in the Ignition Design Challenge videos for the alarm status tables to pull in, like the last 4 hours of data. We can also do bit functions, like pull a bit out of an integer value, which is very common in PLC operations. We can do switch statements, which are like a more complex if statement. And then we can do various state checks, and we can tie those to if statements. And we can also manage tag history if we want to do that. And you can also, I wouldn't really recommend doing this performance-wise, but you can also run scripts from the expression language if you have a script that you want to run from an expression for some reason. You can do that. And expressions can be used in a lot of places. So we'll just go to our 103 video. Maybe we'll look at the buttons page here. And let's click this label. Let's say we wanted to put a binding on the text here, and we'll get into this in the video, but we're just showing expressions for the moment. We can configure an expression binding. So this would allow us to, let's say we want to change this label to say, give us our current time We can click the little function icon here. We can go to date time and select now. And just close the parentheses here. And we'll see down here, this gives us our current date time and sets the text of that label to it. And if we hit OK, we'll see that this updates in real time. And maybe our formatting looks a little weird, so we want to come here. We'll click our function button, and we want to do date format. We'll put in the date we want to format, and let's do we're going to do hours, minutes, and seconds with a month, day, and year format. So we'll reformat that. We can also look at tag data. So let's say we want to pull in a tag value here. We'll clear this out. Let's say we want to look at our compressor 1 line voltage. We can map to a tag, and that's going to give us a lot of decimal points. So let's do a round and two decimal places. That rounds our value of that tag and puts that in there. We can also set up expression tags. So if I just want to come in here, do new tag, new standard tag, expression tag, and we'll call this expression example. And let's make this a float. And let's say we want to add together our line voltage from compressor 1 and compressor 2. So we can grab compressor 1 line voltage, then we will add that to compressor 2 line voltage, and we'll hit OK. And if we pull up, compressor 2 line voltage is 100. Compressor 1 line voltage is 77 that we see up here on the label, and we're adding those together. So you can set that up on tags, on bindings, and that's pretty much the main places you would put that. And it allows you to do operations on data without getting into the complexity level of writing scripts. If you were to think of it like you're using Excel, that's like putting a sum function in a cell to grab the sum of a range of data. That would be an expression level operation. And then scripting would be going into like VBA scripting to do macros and things. That gives you a lot more flexibility, but also more complexity to learn and figure out what's going on there. So that's not an exhaustive overview of expressions. That's really something when you have a problem to solve. That's one of the arrows in the quiver you can use. And I'd get familiar with this page. I even still reference this page from time to time when I'm working with expressions, because it's not always obvious what the right format, say, for pulling something out of a data set is. And I usually have to look that up if I haven't done that in a while. So that goes through everything expression related and gives you some resources to look at when you're digging into those on your own. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you for watching.